Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over stegosaurs as well as a new species of sauropod. And as well, we're going to be getting into wolves. Let's start off with I'm guessing Jurassic, but it could be the Cretaceous period as well. So, from Sci News, new stegosaur species unearthed in China. Bashanosaurus primitivus is the earliest record of Stegosauria in Asia and represents one of the earliest records of this dinosaur group from anywhere in the world. Well, it does also seem to be that many of the earlier species of stegosaurs were existing over in Asia. And then a bit later in time, you had it where they were roaming different parts of Africa as well as North America. Doesn't seem to be that the stegosaurs really ever inhabited Australia or Antarctica, however. And yes, it seems to be for the entirety of this group of dinosaurs that they were primarily herbivorous, so feeding on a wide range of different species of ferns, likely even different species of conifers due to certain stomach content preservations. And later into the Cretaceous period, likely they would be feeding on different types of flowers. I'm wondering though if this is a much smaller species of stegosaur. I think many people tend to view the stegosaurs as like a medium-sized dinosaur group, which is true. However, you have it where Stegosaurus is one of the larger species, reaching like somewhere around 30 feet or 9 meters.
It only looks about 7 inches long.
Yeah, he might literally be in this instance, but well, at least when it comes to the picture. However, you could have certain species of stegosaurs that didn't really reach much more than 11 feet in length or pushing 3.2 meters and maybe weighing somewhere around 300 pounds or a little over 140 kilograms. So let's see what occurred. He doesn't seem to have as small of a skull compared to his body size, unlike likely later descendants. So the stegosaurs were an iconic group of armored dinosaurs with hypertrophy dermal armor plates or spines extending from the neck to the end of the tail. Stegosaurus fossils have been found on all continents except for Antarctica and Australia. It's just that I was forgetting how common they actually are in different parts of Europe, especially over in Portugal, Spain, possibly even reaching certain parts of France and even the British Isles. I think as well, recent years we have found one over in either Ireland or Scotland. But when it comes to South America, they're not very common, but they do occur. I think they're just quite fragmentary. First stegosaurs are known from the Middle Jurassic of Europe, China, Argentina, and Morocco. So stegosaurian diversity appears to have decreased after the Jurassic period, and they seem to have gone extinct by the Middle Cretaceous. Um, they were still somewhat successful for this dinosaur group during the early Cretaceous. It's making out like they were pretty much diminishing, and that's not true. For some reason, though, it tends to like the stegosaurs aren't mentioned very often after the Jurassics. Like once stegosaurs goes extinct, and then other species tend to be ignored. So about 14 stegosaur genera are currently recognized. I believe there's a handful more. The newly discovered genre. Okay, that's probably right. I was thinking of species. There's many more species. So the newly discovered stegosaur species roamed the Earth during the Middle Jurassic period around 168 million years ago. Scientifically named Boschanosaurus primitivus. The ancient creature was about 2.8 meters or 9 feet long. I mean, this probably makes sense due to this being one of the earliest species of stegosaur that we know of. 9 feet is still quite small for a stegosaur. Even dinosaurs during the Middle Jurassic in general. I mean, for this being around 168 million years ago, there were a wide range of different species of predators, sauropods that reached far greater sizes, like reaching well over 50 feet at this point with like Omiosaurs. Let's bring up a species of sauropod, or specifically this one. Omeisaurus.
Wait, you said sauropod?
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing stegosaurs.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd bring it up considering it was a much larger species at this point. and stegosaurs are quite small. Um, so when it comes to like the sauropods at this point, they've only been around for maybe 12 to 15 million years. And this animal is from the British Isles over in Europe.
What's on its tail?
Oh, okay. So this animal was somewhat like an ankylosauromorph to an extent of the sauropod family. It wasn't the only species to contain this type of a mutation. You had different members of the Shunnosauridae lineage of sauropods, which would have contained a somewhat club spike-like tail, very likely used to defend itself against other predators and probably even fight against its own kind, maybe even during the breeding season. But it's also very likely that these animals could have reared up on their hind legs and somewhat boxed or even stabbed each other with their thumb claws during the breeding season. Well, this is definitely an older depiction of the animal, especially when it comes to the club tail. I mean, they do make it quite thin towards the end, which would occur with many species of sauropod dinosaurs when it comes to the end of the tail, even other lineages of herbivores in general, but not to the same extent as certain sauropods. This animal was inhabiting Europe somewhere around 168 to 170 million years ago. So possibly coming into contact with larger carnivores like Megalosaurus, maybe even Eustreptospondylus, but Eustreptospondylus probably evolved a bit later into the Jurassic. You would have other species of sauropods like the Cetiosaurus. This animal, though, was probably reaching somewhere around 45 to maybe 52 feet in length, or pushing somewhere between maybe 14 to over 16 meters in length.
I don't see anything on their tails.
Um, yeah, that is quite odd.
Okay.
I mean, if these are supposed to be Omysosaurus, hold on a second. Omysosaurus. I wonder if I'm confusing the two separate species. It's mentioning Gasosaurus here. Gasosaurus. No, wait a second. No, that would be correct. Gasosaurus was over in England during the mid Jurassic, and so was Omysaurus. I was getting Gasosaurus, the theropod in this picture, so the carnivorous dinosaur, mixed up with Yangchuanosaurus. Yangchuanosaurus was also far larger. Gasosaurus is a small species, well, medium sized for the mid Jurassic, smaller theropod in general for the Mesozoic. It probably only reached somewhere around 11 to 13 feet in length, slightly larger than the Stegosaur species that they found, or between 3.2 and maybe um, about 4 meters in length. Now, the Oomysosaurus in this picture is definitely depicted as having a very skinny neck, almost like the Tanystrophiid marine sauroptegan reptiles of the Triassic in terms of like the muscle density. So I'm not sure if it would be able to keep its head off the ground or its neck in general. That skinny of a neck. I don't mind the overall model. I mean, I think it still looks good, but
Wait, I have a great one.
a bit off. Almost like a Mamenka sword in terms of the length. I've seen these type of depictions of the sauropods. Um, yeah, especially like having that extended bottom part of the neck, almost like the chest, except in this case, for some instance or for some reason, they're not giving the chest a very pronounced look, which is possibly likely in certain cases. I think they're far too thin of legs. I don't think they're large enough to support this type of a bone structure and just overall mass in general. The tail in general is a little bit of a club, but towards the back, it is somewhat heightened to an extent.
Okay, there's no club on this guy.
But yeah, the skull part, that might have been supposed to like represent an inflammation, which is certainly possible with sauropods, considering they're more closely related to birds than other lineages. Most other lineages of herbivorous dinosaurs are, especially like the horned dinosaurs, like Triceratops being the ceratopsids, the stegosaurs and ornithopods. So what is this? Oh, I think it's just another Omyosaurus. Club tail is barely recognizable. Um, What I am noticing with almost every reconstruction of this sauropod is that they're giving it, for the most part, quite thin legs, except the thighs on this individual are rather wide. Um, but likely this animal was just feeding on different species of conifers in Europe at this point. Flowers have yet to evolve. You won't have it where flowers will evolve for probably another 25 million years, 25 to 30 million years at least. It's not a close relative of the brachiosaurs or even the titanosaurs. They're their own group of macroninian sauropods. They would continue until like the late Jurassic and then eventually disappear from the fossil record,
Okay, there's no clubs on these guys either.
pushing around 155 to 157 million years ago. Yeah, it is interesting. I'm kind of wondering, these are either older representations of Omayosaurus, except I think we were seeing a much older depiction that showed the club. If it was recognized in more recent years that this animal didn't have a club, quite odd. I mean,
We
it
don't know
certainly
how
is
old this
possible.
is, though.
Yeah, it's probably Gasosaurus and Omayosaurus. But
No, I meant we don't know how old the picture is.
I'm going to guess is probably early 2010s based on the models looking similar to like certain ones being put on like National Geographic. Um, some pterosaur in the distance that probably shouldn't be here.
Mr. Unexpected said, "Is it true dinosaurs have feathers?"
We do have evidence for different species of smaller species of dinosaurs, specifically belonging to the theropod family and as well the ceratopsian lineage, especially the Stegosaurus over from 112 million year old early Cretaceous China. We have evidence not just for preserved pigmofibers, which would have contained the feathers, but we have preserved color as well. And color is also not something very common that we find in different species of dinosaurs, but it has become at least since the 1980s, 1990s, we have found preserved color, and I'll include the feathers as well, in different species of smaller theropods, such as Sinornithosaurus from early Cretaceous China, about 125 million years ago. I believe Microraptor as well. Trying to think of also certain species of oviraptorids, and was something that popped up with the sauropods, and I believe Diplodocus recently, possibly indicating that we also found preserved color from Diplodocus as well. I don't remember, or it was just a quick glimpse that I saw at the moment. Trying to think of who else because we have found the preserved color and also feathers from much larger animals, like referring to the dinosaurs, but it's not hitting me at the moment. It's Now, when it comes to larger species, especially when you're talking about larger species of theropods, so tyrannosaurs or maybe even certain species from back in the Triassic period, so well over 202 million years ago, like we'll take, for instance, Coelophysis. We haven't found any evidence that Coelophysis specifically, which is a species of carnivore that lived in Arizona, Texas, around 213 million years ago, had feathers. However, due to how closely related it is to certain other lineages of neotheropods, it's very possible that it could have contained feathers. At least in more reconstructions in recent years, they have been depicted as having feathers.
The next question was, I have a question. What are their bones made out of? I don't know.
Um,
Are they referencing the fossil itself or the bone?
Well, when it comes to the regular bones in general, it is practically the same or would be very similar to how mammalian bones are reconstructed as well, or at least birds and different species of crocodilians. The bone density would be different depending on the lineage of dinosaurs that you would be referring to. Like, let's say we take into account the sauropods. Many of these species are found to have very hollow bones compared to their body size, or at least having many holes, making them lightweight or porous. The same thing also occurs, these aren't dinosaurs, but they're very close relatives with the different species of pterosaurs, whether they're the smaller species from the um, late Triassic period or towards the very end of the Cretaceous with the much larger, um, like 35-foot or 11-meter. long wingspan as darkids. But if you're looking at certain species, and I'm going to go back to the sauropods, like the brachiosaurs, it looks like they were much more heavily built and the bones were less hollow compared to diplodocids. Um, Now, when you're looking at many species like raptors, dromaeosaurs, the smaller species, they are much more hollow, especially like velociraptor, compared to something such as a Equilibrator or maybe Utah raptor. Now, but when it comes to the overall mineral, nutrient, and chemical compound makeup, they were fairly similar to like birds or even crocodilians of today. Um, Now, what was the other thing? Oh, so I guess when it comes to how or what the mineral makeup is when they're discovered, depending on how they fossilize, so what sediments they're coming in contact with right when they died, it won't always be the same, but you just simply have in many cases like how it turns to stone, um, even though it has like the mineral um, contact, like or it's the minerals that the bones were originally made with, like the calcium, phosphorus, are still preserved, but they have been mixed or combined with the different types of sediments that they were just simply combined with over millions of years of preservation. Now,
But but can't things fossilize faster?
um, you mean turn to stone at a quicker rate? I don't know the specific process that occurs for quicker or more rapid fossilization. Um, I have also seen certain things where it can take as little as a few, well, I'd say maybe 10 to 20 years to
Yeah, that's what
become,
I thought you had said that to me.
to becoming quote a fossil. And I don't recall, at least at the moment, like in some cases where maybe it takes a few hundred years or a few thousand years to become also a fossil as well. I wouldn't think, even despite their size, it would also take much longer with the dinosaurs as well. Even certain giant marine reptiles or giant prehistoric mammals from the later Cenozoic. But I believe like some of the best preserved specimens that we have of different types of dinosaurs is when it seems that they got caught amidst a flash flood, like with what's happened with different species of hadrosaurs, ceratopsians, and tyrannosaurs over in Alberta, Canada. I do believe that there have been certain instances further south in like different parts of Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, where there were flash flood events as well. And I think possibly even certain parts of Asia, but, I will say that when it comes to the overall skeletal preservation, that they're some of the best preserved. When it comes to, like, preserved colors and feathers of different species of dinosaurs, especially the smaller species, it was either, like, due to a volcanic event, like they were just simply covered in ash, or it was some other, process that I'm going to need to go over as to why we found, such well-preserved, like, Sign Ornithosaurus feathers, and, like, the whole skeletal structure is, or seems to be covered in their feathers. So from right before, like, the upper maxilla of their skull down to the very end of their caudal vertebrae or their tail vertebrae. So, um, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add. I think, at least at the moment, that's all that's hitting me for the bones. So, I guess we can go back to the article. Oh, real quick. So the Gasosaurus, it is a relative of the Allosaurus from North America, but Allosaurus won't evolve for probably at this point another 15 million years at least. But you also had Allosaurus species over in what seems to be Europe and possibly Africa. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet. So it had, when referring to Boschanosaurus, this stegosaur, and a smaller and less developed shoulder blade, narrower and thicker bases to its armor plates, and other features that are different from all other Middle Jurassic stegosaurs discovered so far. So, however, it had similarities with some of the first armored dinosaurs, which are over 20 million years older. This is not necessarily surprising because the Stegosaur is pretty much derived from the same plant eating dinosaurs from the early, very first couple million years of the Jurassic, so about 201 million years ago. That being the Eutherians. So they would evolve into the different species of stegosaurs, the proto-stegosaurs and proto-ankylosauromorphs as well, kind of like Scelidosaurus, which existed.
Why is it called a proto?
It has many characteristics that they would share with their later descendants, like kind of like when you're looking at proto-mammals, but there are different parts of their anatomy and overall morphology that separate them from the, like in this case, true ankylosaurs or true stegosaurs, or like with the proto-mammals, mammals. Um, so let's see. What else? All these features are clues to the stegosaur's place on the dinosaur family tree. Oh, and by the way, since we're only about 168 million years ago, with this dinosaur that they discovered, and it mentioned that the first armored dinosaurs were around 20 million years earlier, I'd push that to around 30 million years, considering that's only pushing maybe somewhere around 188 million years ago. So already for 10 to 12 million years before that point, you already had smaller armored dinosaurs. True, they weren't much more than maybe 7 feet in length. They're pushing 2.1 meters, probably weighing maybe at most 150 to 200 pounds or somewhere around 90 kilograms.
Again, is it confirmed that a meteor hit the Earth?
There does seem to be, well, it's called the Chicxulub crater, and it's based off of the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. And so it's somewhere around 6 miles in diameter or fully across. Now, the big question is, also there's this specific line within the geological unit called the KT boundary. So that separates the Cretaceous period from the Paleocene epoch. Or you could say even the beginning of the Tertiary period or the Cenozoic era in general. So, um, also, when it comes to right when the asteroid hit, it is a big question as to what specifically happened afterwards. Like what happened for the next few 100,000 years. I'd say I really don't think it would have taken certain parts of Earth to have healed after that impact that long. Considering it was just like one major instance, and then I would think maybe within um possibly even less than a few thousand years, you could have it where much of the earth was healing.
Yeah, but did it actually wipe out everything?
Well, supposedly you had it where there was massive wildfires occurring across the earth. You also had it where possibly a massive cloud of dust was blocking the sun for a short period of time. It possibly triggered like a massive global ice age to an extent. This would definitely have made it nearly impossible for most of the dinosaurs to make a living when it came to just simply obtaining food. It possibly even disrupted freshwater availability. Now, you did have it where different species of crocodilomorphs, certain species of mammals, and smaller dinosaurs did make it into the next corresponding era. Not just birds, but probably certain types of dinosaurs that we still have yet to identify that would become the terror birds of the incoming Paleocene epoch.
Did it wipe out the, um
Oh, marine reptiles too went out with them.
that's what I was wondering.
What is interesting is that you have it where the shelled ammonites completely disappear from that point. Squid still would survive, sharks, certain other fish lineages too, but you had it where the ammonites survived the mass extinction of the Permian, which is said to be the worst mass extinction in the past 530 million years, um, at least since there's been a major amount of life on Earth. Yet the ammonites survived. That was around 252 million years ago. They also survived the Carboniferous extinction somewhere around 298 to 300 million years ago, and they survived the Devonian mass extinction, pushing somewhere around 350 to 355 million years ago. But for some reason, the mass extinction event of the Cretaceous took them out. I can't think. Pretty much all the marine reptiles went extinct at the end of the Cretaceous, but you did have later on different species of mammals take to the ocean, but that really wouldn't occur for at least another um, possibly 16 to 20 million years. With like some of the first whale species, like they were originally terrestrial and they inhabited the country of Pakistan somewhere around 50 to 52 million years ago during the Eocene epoch. Um, that's all that's hitting me at the moment. So let's see. What else was here? So all these features are clues. So back to the Stegosaurus. Well, not Stegosaurus, but this Stegosaur. To the Stegosaurs placed on the dinosaur family tree. Say Dr. Day Hugh, a paleontologist with the Chongqing Bureau of Geological and Mineral Resource Exploration and Development. Bashanosaurus primitivus can be distinguished from other Middle Jurassic stegosaurs and clearly represents a new species. The fossilized remains of Bashanosaurus primitivus, bones from the back, shoulder, thigh, feet, and ribs, were found in the Shaksimo Formation near Laowen Village, Chongqing Municipality, China. Our analysis of the family tree indicates that Bashanosaurus primitivus is one of the earliest diverging stegosaurs, along with Chunkangasaurus. Oh yeah, these fellows. They will occur a bit later on into the Jurassic, and Howangasaurus. Both of these animals were probably somewhere around 15 to 20 feet in length. They're pushing around maybe 4.8 to 6 meters. Probably weights around 1.5 to 2 tons.
They look like.
Yeah, okay. Let's go with maybe Hoangosaurus. So Huayangos. This is not necessarily belonging to the exact same subfamily that Stegosaurus belonged to, but Stegosaurus is just really a member of Stegosauridae. Doesn't seem to, at least at the moment, belong to a separate subfamily.
Okay.
So
He's kind of funny looking.
yeah, also unlike Stegosaurus, Stegosaurus steniops, Stegosaurus ungulatus, also Hesperosaurus. This is one of the types of stegosaur that would have a massive, almost thagomizer protruding from the backside of its shoulder blade, in each one as well. I'm wondering if this is an older depiction. What is interesting is that when it comes to many of the stegosaurs, unlike with what you would see in different species of ankylosaur, as well as different species of horned dinosaurs, being the ceratopsians, is that many of the stegosaurs had 3 toes on their hind feet. They would still, like the ceratopsians, the ankylosaurs, would have 5 fingers. So, like the thumb, the index finger, and the middle finger would be clawed. The other two would be blunt, and also much shorter in length compared to the other 3 fingers, which is odd. Why did the herbivores decide to retain these fingers, but also at just a much shorter length and not clawed? I think it's a bit of a mystery as to what specific um,
Are these 2
benefits.
taking a picture? Because they're both showing their teeth and look like they're smiling.
Yeah, I would say that the skull structures on these individuals are not like stegosaurs. What they do resemble is an iguanodontid to an extent. Some early ornithopod. I would not say a hadrosaur. This is more iguanodontid in structure. However, the iguanodontids, if you were to see their teeth, you wouldn't see them right under the beak. There were not any teeth in that specific area when it came to iguanodontids. Basically, they would start right after the beak would end, and likely also protected by a massive area of cheek tissue.
Okay, is this any better?
And there wouldn't be also a protruding horn towards the side. That's a ceratopsian trait. You're not going to see that in any species of stegosaurs or ornithopods at all. Um, it would just be the osteoderms along the back of their neck, and the hadrosaurs didn't have any of that, or the
This
iguanodontids.
guy looks like he has feathers growing out of his neck or leaves, not
It
feathers.
it could be possibly representing a smaller, like a younger Huongosaurus. But when it comes to like these relatives of even Kentrosaurus or Tuyungasaurus, um, uh, these animals likely would have had mass or much longer osteoderms or more plate-like, scale-like structures similar to Stegosaurus along the front of their, um, I guess the upper part of their body, like towards the front and then towards the back. For some reason, they evolved like several different thagomizer or spike-like appendages, which is very odd. I do think though it might have very well have helped them with fending off different species of predators, especially the metrocanthosaurs and other species of allosaurs that they came into contact with. The problem is when it comes to this reconstruction, if it is supposed to represent a younger individual, is that the thagomizer basically protruding above their shoulder blade. Well, in this instance, I think it's a bit oddly placed, but it's an okay model. Also, the two claws should be claw in this instance. It would be much shorter compared to what it's showing here. On a full-grown individual, that would be a perfectly sized thagomizer.
Is this a female?
It possibly could
I
be.
don't know why, just something about the face.
Yeah, the face also does seem a bit iguanodonted in structure. Also, the beak should be quite even, like the upper beak with the bottom beak as well. It does have a slight stegosaur accumulation to it, but still fairly off. What is interesting is that they did add smaller, like almost nodosaur osteoderms towards the side. At least osteoderms on nodosaurs you would see on the upper parts of their thighs or their rib cage region, not including like the massive spikes you would see along their like upper back vertebrae area and even like along their tail and the upper neck. The stegosaurs, it is interesting in this instance where they evolved similar traits to the nodosaurs, and the nodosaurs just decided to completely cover like the sides of their body with thagomizers. But technically, they're not structured in the same way as stegosaur, thagomizers, or spikes. They're very different. They're much wider and also quite curved. So let's see. Our analysis of the family tree indicates that Bachanosaurus primitivus is one of the earliest diverging stegosaurs. I already said that. These were all unearthed from the middle to late Jurassic Shuxmio formation, suggesting that stegosaurs might have originated in Asia. I mean, I don't doubt this. It's very possible. We have a lot of early species of different lineages of dinosaurs starting over in Asia. It's very prevalent once you hit the early Cretaceous period, especially with different theropods like the oviraptorids. But that is a very distant branch from the stegosaurs. The discovery of the stegosaur from the Middle Jurassic of China adds to an increasing body of evidence that the group evolved in the early Middle Jurassic, or perhaps even in the early Jurassic, and as such represents some of the earliest known bird hip dinosaurs, said Dr. Susanna Maidment, a paleontologist at the Natural History Museum in London. Um, yeah, I think they probably evolved a bit earlier, especially when you're taking into account the earlier Eutherians. So possibly pushing well over, 180 um, million years ago, especially considering animals like Scelidosaurus existed much earlier. China seems to have been a hotspot for stegosaur diversity, with numerous species we now are now known from the Middle Jurassic right the way through. What? Okay, right through the end of the early Cretaceous. Yeah, it seems to be that the stegosaurs mysteriously went extinct somewhere between 105 and 110 million years ago. They did not make it into the late Cretaceous. It is a big question as to why they're existing or they're coexisting with a wide variety of different types of plants that are now first evolving during the early Cretaceous, being flowers, different fruit-bearing plants. Um, Though you still have it where there's also a wide range of species, like different types of ginkgos, cycads, so like the spiky plants. So ginkgos are technically different type of tree. Different species of conifers that still exist at this point. So it is quite odd. I don't believe it was due to predators. Certain, it seems, maybe environmental or ecological and maybe climatic changes that are going on. You could have had it with different types of rain patterns that were affecting them. Um, I don't think it was due to really much of like a cool snap that was occurring, since you already had massive cooling events occurring like over 135 million years ago. Stegosaurs were fine. Later, well, I guess pushing around this point, but even then, like 108 million years ago, I believe they were still clinging on. But yes, there were very few at that point. So that is a huge mystery. Okay, we're going to head forward into the Cenozoic era and check what's going on with our furry friends. So, from petapixel.com, camera traps capture wolves hunting European bison for the first time. Woo! Yes! We've been waiting so long. Gosh, like the last time that this was probably occurring, it was the late 1800s, very likely, or possibly, I'd say. But wow, I mean, this is really only something you hear about over in different parts of North America, especially over in Wyoming, or if somebody's got a bison herd over in different parts of Montana, possibly Alberta. You could say even maybe Alaska or the Yukon if there's ever like a sighting with wolves going after wood bison, which is different subspecies from the prairie bison that exist in, well, historically a large portion of North America. But, so here we have Europe. Yeah, the European bison, when it comes to the population at this point, there seems to be somewhere around 8 to 11,000 European bison, throughout Europe. There were only a handful of individuals, or, I think maybe 20 to 30 of them in total, like, some point in the 1930s, and they were all surviving in Poland. So let's see. I wonder where this is taking place. Or did it say? So camera traps have captured wolves hunting a herd of European bison in an ancient forest in Poland. Okay, of course, it's going to be here for the first time. We do have also an increasing wolf population over in Poland, or somewhere between 2,000 to 2,700 wolves throughout the entire country. So, new research published in the journal Ecology and Evolution suggests that European bison, despite their size and reputation as animals with few natural predators, are not entirely safe from wolf attacks. I mean, I was wondering when this was finally going to occur, because it's like now and then you're wondering, has anything happened between wolves and bison and in Europe? It's like, nope, consistently. And then finally it occurs. So, researchers from the Polish Academy of Science have filmed an encounter using remote camera traps that prove the species does face attacks from wolves. Um, I don't know. I think that's funny. Oh, I think, yeah, there's something going on in the background.
You wanna play that?
I guess we could. Question is, how long of a? Hmm. Wow. Well, there's something going on here. It's like, okay, you take the
Everybody's gone,
front, I'll take the back, you take the side.
but
We all have it planned out.
and we get to see a forest.
Wait a second. Let's see. Is there anything else going on? There. Okay, they're about to show up any moment now. Okay. Hmm. This is definitely different from what you're used to watching, like coming in from Yellowstone. But also, it's in a very wooded habitat.
Which is probably better for the wolves.
Yeah. Oh, they got. Oh, it was a calf. I was wondering what I was looking at from the picture. That's kind of unfortunate, really, just due to how rare European bison are.
Well, the
It's like you want the wolves to, have lunch, but it's like, could you go after maybe an older individual? But I mean, it makes sense. We're at the time of year where the bison are having their fawns, well, calves, but it would be slightly earlier into the year. Um, let's see. According to a report by IFL Science, the footage was captured on September 15th, 2025, deep within Białowieża primeval forest, which straddles the border between Poland and Belarus. Whoa, okay, that I wasn't expecting. So actually, it might make a bit more sense. But this is towards the very eastern boundary of Poland, so in the western, adjacent to the western part of Belarus. And then there's that little Russian territory. So confusing. Anyway, European bison were reintroduced to the area in the 1950s after the species had disappeared from the wild. Okay, so I guess they had them in semi captivity and then released them. The video shows a pack of 7 wolves, seemed like more than that, targeting a herd of 11 bison. I think we only saw like half of the herd. That is a small herd. Jeez. The wolves focused their attention on a newborn calf, which they managed to bite and begin dragging away. 2 adult female bison then charged at the predators, forcing them to retreat. I think I'm just narrating what we saw. Let's see. Did they get it? I think it
Well,
says they.
they knocked it off twice.
Yeah, it says the wolves eventually ended their pursuit. So it doesn't sound like they got the calf. So according to IFL Science, okay, it's just mentioning North American wolves hunting American bison. So, to our knowledge, we present the first video recorded evidence of wolves attacking a European bison herd in the Bialowieza primeval forest, focusing on a newborn calf. The study author is right, according to the news outlet. They add, although the video did not show a direct kill, our observation demonstrated that the European bison is in fact a potential prey for wolves. What was also um, it was a bit surprising, but at the same time, it just seemed like natural instinct was that it was the mother and as well as the rest of the herd immediately saw the wolves as a threat and quickly went in to intervene. In some cases, with like American bison over in Yellowstone, it's like they'll wait for a second. It's like, what are you doing? Just go in. You weigh more than the whole pack combined. So, well, that's probably a pretty big pack, but it's just that was very interesting. Let's see. So the footage is notable because of the species history. European bison, largest land animal in Europe, became extinct in the wild in 1919. Oh, I thought it was later. I didn't realize it was that early. They were reintroduced in the Bialowieza primeval forest in 1952, and Poland now has the world's largest population of European bison. I don't know what the total population is over in Poland, but I'm guessing it's in the thousands. Despite the newly documented behavior on the camera trap footage, the researchers from the Polish Academy of Science do not believe wolf predation is occurring at a level that would threaten the overall bison population. There's only 10 to 11,000 of these guys. I mean, each calf is very important for the species to continue. But I just find that rather interesting. That's they were that they made that statement. Okay, well, to an extent, I guess it's just good to see the two together. All right, well, let's head back in time. So, from Sinus, a new species of long-necked dinosaur discovered. So, a new species of sauropod dinosaur that stretched 39 feet or 12 meters from head to tail has been unearthed in Patagonia, Argentina. Alrighty, so looks like we've possibly, I'm going to guess, have a species of Dicryosaurid sauropod or maybe a Rebecca coming in from the region. It definitely is like a smaller species of sauropod, it seems, at least judging by the length. 39 feet or 12 meters is a smaller sauropod. Now, in this drawing, they make it out like it's starving. Literally a clear rib cage. Now, oh, everybody's starving. This is kind of,
Well, there's nothing to eat around them.
yeah, dramatic. Jeesh. It's like the Land Before Time, Aaron. Dubbed Lavocatosaurus agruensis. The new dinosaur is thought to have lived approximately 110 million years ago. Alrighty, so we're over at the same time that animals like, I believe, Oxalia and Suchomimus were. Wait, no. At least Suchomimus was roaming Africa. Oxalia is another species of Spinosaur, but from South America. And possibly it was roaming the area maybe a bit earlier than Suchomimus was roaming Africa. So the creature was a type of sauropod. It's not very specific. Could have said Macronenian. So one adult and 2 immature specimens of Lavocatosaurus agruensis were recovered near the locality of Agrio del Medio, a small town in the central part of the province of New Queen, Patagonia. We found most of the skull bones of Lavocatosaurus agriensis, the snout, the jaws, a lot of teeth, also the bones that define the orbit of the eyes, for example. And in that way, we were able to do a very complete reconstruction, said Dr. Jose Luis Carbalido, a paleontologist at the Conicat Egidio Ferruglio Museum. In addition, parts of the neck, tail, and back of this species were found. I think we should maybe bring him up. Oh, whoa. Finally, that is really good to see when it comes to the preservation of at least the skull structure of this animal. We have it. And then almost like the entire neck is basically complete when it comes to the cervical neck vertebrae. Part of the caudal vertebrae of the tail is still really good to see. Even the upper part of the tail, we have a shin and an ulna bone coming in from, at least shin bone from one of the hind limbs, and an ulna bone from the forelimbs, as well as the humerus, shoulder blade, couple of ribs, and what seems to be a phalange, not necessarily a toe, but like a finger, I'm guessing. And I get think part of an ankle, or is that what I'm confusing it with? Maybe the ankle or metatarsal bone. But it's still really good to see. Hmm. There seems to be some later species of diplodocid dinosaur. All right. Let's go into Auxalia. Let's bring up a Spinosaur species. So, Oxalia.
Is it AIA?
Oh, could be.
Okay, I'm just putting this up because I like the colors or the pattern.
Okay. So yeah, this is specifically him. So this animal, I think when it comes to South American Spinosaurs, people are a handful might be a bit more familiar with Irritator. You have another species of early Cretaceous Spinosaur that was existing, but it wasn't over in South America. It was over in Asia, Southeast Asia, like Laos, Cambodia, Thailand area. Ichthyovenator, but still very different in structure. Auxalia was approaching Spinosaurus size, but was still dwarfed by Spinosaurus, and as well possibly even Sigilmosaurus from Thailand. But this animal was existing in the area somewhere between 110 and 120 million years ago over in, I believe, Brazil. In fact, it comes in from the Romualdo Formation, which is um, where I believe we have found the bones to like the more famous species of Pterosaur tropegnathus, and then possibly to an adjacent formation like the Tapijara. But tropegnathus being a member of the Ornithochiridae lineage of pterosaurs, likely fed on different species of fish in the region. But focusing on the Auxaliae, this animal probably reached somewhere around 36 to 40 feet in length, or pushing between 11 to 12.2 meters. Probably weighed somewhere around 6 to 7 tons, but quite similar in structure in many cases to the Spinosaurus. Um, though when you look at the skull structure, it does have a different morphology compared to Spinosaurus's skull. Like especially when you look towards the top part of the upper jaw, even like just the overall bottom jaw in general. Spinosaurus, especially Egypticus, not the new species, is much more robust and different in the curvature structure. Now, what is interesting is that they're actually giving this animal a decent amount of
Curvature
musculature.
of what?
The upper part of the skull,
Okay.
like especially towards the center of the, well, somewhat center of the upper maxilla, and then it's supposed to represent auxilia. Wonder where this came from. This is not a bad model. Um, wow. What is interesting is that they kind of are representing the animal. This has kind of occurred back and forth between like Spinosaur models and, well, Spinosaurus, and I guess the other larger species of Spinosaur in general, where they have it where the tail is just dragging. it would be lifted off the ground like practically all different species of theropods. You could have it where in certain instances maybe it's on the ground, but possibly due to them sitting. And they're just sitting on their pelvis. But what is good is that they added a decent amount of musculature to the legs. Spinosaurus was going through a time, well, Spinosaurus, where especially the larger species with the elongated back vertebrae or their sails specifically, they had thin, like extremely exaggerated, just skinny legs, or like their thighs might be somewhat wide, but there still really isn't a lot of muscle stuck onto that specific region. And somehow, like people were led to believe that they could support 8 to 9 tons of mass on those little skinny legs. And then you had it where in slightly, I'm referring to like the late 2010s and even early into the 2020s to an extent. And I think you had it where in 2014 and 2015 he was walking on all fours, and that was a big issue. Like we don't want to see a gorilla Spinosaur. Just give him the bipedalism of his theropod people. So, um, when it comes to yes, Spinosaurus, well, also Auxiliae, it very likely did have quite robust arms compared to even its body size. Or, um,
Those are pretty robust arms.
yeah, in fact, it's kind of a common trait with many species of Megalosauroideae theropods. Um, when it comes to also like species of megalosaurs coming from earlier in the Jurassic, like the um what was it like Megalosaurus in general, even for its time, it had very robust arms. But also when it came to Spinosaurus, it is interesting considering it could be simply due to like the size of the fish that this animal was going after. Certain species of fish, different spinosaurs were feeding on, could probably reach somewhere around 20 to 23 feet in length, or pushing between 6 to 7 meters. Many of them being like saw-toothed like fish, somewhat closely related to sharks. But we don't really have any evidence for the Spinosaurs, at least like Auxiliae and Spinosaurus. Well, it's possible for Auxiliae. Um,
There's a
well,
thinner
technically
guy.
Spinosaurus too, but hunting in salt water. Is this like an older depiction of him? I wonder if this is another species. No, it can't be Irritator. Irritator doesn't have that long of a or heightened of a back vertebrae. It's almost like when it comes to Irritator, quite similar to like maybe Ichthyovenator or Baryonyx in some instances, at least when it comes to the overall structure. Well, this is a bit similar to somewhat older reconstructions of many spinosaurs in general. Now, what is interesting is that they gave this animal very webbed feet. It has been theorized for the spinosaurs that they might have had somewhat webbed feet because they seem to be somewhat semi aquatic. But they also did to his arms or his hands too, which is interesting. I have not seen that before. I mean, it's certainly possible. When it comes to his sail, though, it is giving that like early 2010s depiction of a Spinosaur sail, where many reconstructions were giving them like these ovalish, long ovalish, elongated back vertebrae, like extending from the bottom of his neck down to, you could say like the upper part of his tail, and then it's shrank, but the height of the sail has been increased. It looks more rectangular-ish in shape these days, but with a bit of an indentation. I think these are really good reconstructions. Now, whether or not this animal would have efficiently swam like under the water is a huge debate.
I like the coloring on this.
Um, Possibly could basically swim, but not that efficiently. Yeah, I think it looks good too. Might have even camouflaged with the ecosystem. Yeah, that was a good reconstruction as well. Okay, so let's see what they found here. So the paleontologists estimate that adult Lavocatosaurus agroiensis grew to about 39 feet long, while juveniles were around 20 to 23 feet, 6 to 7 meters long. Or 39 feet being 12 meters. I don't find that too surprising. I would expect them to be somewhat smaller. The discovery was made in the center of the Argentinian province of Neuquén. We do have a wide range of dinosaurs that come here from the early Cretaceous. At that site, 110 million years ago, The environment was very desert.
Hmm?
What? Somebody said this. Oh, okay. I think he's from Brazil or Argentina. With sporadic lagoons, so we're surprised to find the fossils there. Although it is estimated that this group of sauropods could have been adapted to move in rather arid environments with low vegetation, with little humidity and little water, it is an environment in which one would not be looking for fossils. I mean, I guess you could say that to um, a major part of like different ecosystems that would have been basically a desert in many cases, but still have areas where dinosaurs could sustain themselves.
I can't get past it saying it was desert.
Yeah. Maybe think the environment was very desert-like. You could say that. The same, I already said that. The same aridity of the environment indicates that the fossil remains of these three individuals. Oh, so there were three. Okay, well, it made it look like they were.
One.
Well, there were two, but one was perishing. Well, technically, I think they both were.
Oh,
Um,
you mean the hold on.
I kind of wonder if it was also supposed to represent like when they were going extinct. And there was just some bad drought. Okay. Indicates that the fossil remains of these three individuals were not displaced and gathered next to a waterway, but that they moved in groups and died together. Um, well, weird thing is the picture is making out like they're adjacent to some water, but maybe they're looking for food. There is no way to know if there was kinship among the members of this group, so it will be left to the imagination to guess if it was a father or a mother with two of their children. Well, we don't really have any evidence at the moment to suggest that sauropods had it where they were establishing relationships where both the mother and the father would take care of their young.
But I thought we did know that they moved around in herds.
Well, we do have a lot of evidence for sauropods moving in herds. We have several trackways showing much older, mature adults, as well as, in some cases, not necessarily approaching hatchling, but very young juveniles moving alongside them. And, um, and not just, and also a wide range of different parts of North America where we see this, certain areas of South America, but, whether or not both parents were present is a big question, and the same goes for a wide variety of different lineages of herbivorous dinosaurs. This seems to be a somewhat common case in different species of theropods like T-Rex. It's very possible for even animals like Allosaurus, different species of the raptor, Dromaeosaur family, where we have found indications, well, with the T-Rex, where extremely injured individuals were or happened to have survived like instances where they lost half of their tail and there's indication showing that the bone had healed. So either it was just other members of the group or there was a mate there helping it as well. Now, you also have it where there are instances where allosaurs, like amongst a Camarasaurus carcass, or at least skeleton in this case, there are several teeth in the same area, and some coming from much smaller allosaurs and others coming in from much larger individuals. But also, when it comes to even different species of smaller carnivores, like especially oviraptorids, it might be possible that you had it where both parents were taking care of their young, but at least when it comes to sauropods and definitely like the stegosaurs and ankylosaurs, that is a big question. So, um, that's all for these sauropods at the moment. Thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. You know what? Happy International Auxiliary Day. At least South American Spinosaurs. And remember that nothing's better than all animals all the time. And we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick.